Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's info session on the Banyan Impact Fellowship Program for Service in India. We are still waiting for a few attendees to join, but I already wanted to say a quick hello to those who have already joined, and also happily introducing Megan, who is with me here today. Megan recently graduated from the fellowship program actually last year in June, and very happy to have her here today, that she can also share her first-hand experience with the program and giving you some insights into her fellowship, 10 months of fellowship. Exactly. So as I mentioned, we will wait maybe just one more minute. Again, hello everyone who have already joined, and special thanks to Megan for joining. Maybe already a little bit about the structure. So I will give a brief presentation on the structure of the program, of the fellowship program, what to keep in mind when you apply for the program. And then Megan will talk about her experience as a Banyan Impact Fellow. And then, of course, we will have some time for a Q&A. So any questions you have, you can share via the comments section. You have either joined from YouTube or LinkedIn. In both cases, you can just put your questions in the comments, and we will then address them in the end in the Q&A session. Having said that, I think we are good to start. So in case there are a few who have joined over the last minute, welcome again. Thank you very much for joining. We are excited to host this info session for you today. It's our third info session during the application period. We are currently accepting applications for our Banyan Impact Fellowship Program for Service in India with a deadline February 20th. And this session is about providing some information about the program as such, and also the application process. Megan will share her experience as a Banyan Impact Fellow who graduated last year. And then we will answer all of your questions. So feel free to already drop your questions in the comments, and we will address them later on. So the Banyan Impact Fellowship Program is actually the American India Foundation's oldest program. It started right when the American India Foundation started in 2001. It started as a disaster relief program following the earthquake in Gujarat. So the first fellows actually served in disaster relief programs, whereas the program today is a much wider range of thematic areas. The fellows work in different fields, different thematic areas that I will address in a bit. About the American India Foundation, the organization is committed to improving the lives of India's underprivileged, with a special focus on women, children, and youth. And the main pillars of the American India Foundation are programs in education, livelihoods, and public health. And these are also pillars that a lot of our fellows work in their respective projects. However, the fellows go actually beyond that. They work in different thematic areas. And over the years, since 2001, we have accumulated an alumni network of 539 fellows who have worked with different host organizations all over India. It's 238 partner organizations so far, and 25 states in India. A little bit about the program. It's an immersive 10 months volunteer service program. It's a service leadership program. So our philosophy is also that through service, you would improve your leadership skills and also be prepared for your path after the fellowship program. I already mentioned that the main thematic areas at AIF are education, livelihoods, and public health, but our fellows are in various other thematic areas as well. The cohort of the fellowship consists of both American and Indian fellows, because it is a leadership development program that is also about the bridge building between India and the United States. So our fellows engage in intercultural and professional exchange, and they work together in those projects or exchange during the fellowship and draw connections that typically last for a lifetime. How it works in the application process, it's something that I will talk about in a bit, but there is a matching process with the host organization. So our shortlisted candidates will get a list of projects that we would offer in a given fellowship year. So they would see the respective host organizations of a given year and the projects, and then based on their interest, they will meet with such host organizations, and following these interviews or conversations, both sides, the host organizations and the fellows, will give us a feedback who they would like to work with. And this is how the matching works. So these project proposals, that's actually something that the host organizations apply with every year. So we do not only receive applications from fellow candidates, but also from host organizations applying with certain project proposals. With some organizations, we've worked repeatedly over the years, but every year we will also add new host organizations. And these project proposals that are submitted by the host organizations later also are a basis for the fellowship project that will then, in collaboration with the fellow, be adjusted and aligned and agreed upon in projects that are scalable, replicable, and sustainable. By sustainable, what we mean is also that the projects should also have an effect beyond the 10 months of the fellowship. So the projects that the fellows work on are actually projects that will benefit the host organization and the host communities beyond the actual 10 months of the fellowship. I mentioned the thematic areas already several times. So besides education, public health, and livelihoods, our fellows also work in climate justice, in environment protection projects, arts and culture, minority rights, technology, women rights, LGBTQ rights. So it's a long list of different thematic areas. And how the matching works is that typically fellows already have prior experience in the respective field. However, we sometimes also have fellows who have an interest in tapping into a new thematic area. And if it's a match with a certain host organization, this can also be considered. Here's a list of some of the benefits that our fellows receive. So it's a fully funded program. That means that the living costs are covered by a stipend. The American India Foundation also covers all visa and travel expenses. Health insurance is covered. There's also an option for mental health counseling. We provide language training. We have several mentoring programs also with our alumni community. We have a senior fellow track that we introduced 2 years ago, where we have seasoned professionals in India's development sector who also act as mentors and who provide additional sessions also for the fellows. They also participate in our thematic conferences over the course of the fellowship, and they provide the fellows with additional guidance and also mentoring. Apart from the senior fellows, of course, the fellows are also in touch with their supervisors at their host organizations, which is another mentoring aspect. And within the fellowship team, there's also an assigned mentor where we have regular check-in calls and see how things are going, both in the project, but also personally for the fellow. So there's a broad support system in place. We also offer professional development grants. There's 3 thematic conferences over the course of the 10 months fellowship, but there's also additional grants for professional development. If fellows, for instance, would like to participate in a certain conference that would benefit their project, or there's also an option to apply for funds to travel for site visits, to see another host organization, visit another fellow, maybe work on a shared project together. So we support these kinds of additional ideas and activities as well. There are a lot of networking and career opportunities. The American India Foundation has a vast network of professionals, other organizations, AIF staff within India, but also in the United States. We partner with Atlas Corps in the United States since our fellowship program is binational. So we have fellows in India, but also in the United States. And so fellows in both countries actually benefit from networks, both from the American India Foundation, but also from Atlas Corps. So we bring all the fellows from both service track in the United States and India also together at the orientation conference that typically happens in Delhi in October, where we bring the whole cohort together, and where we also already bring the fellows in touch with other AIF staff, with professionals from the development sector. So the networking opportunities are quite endless. We also offer skill building workshops. There are several curated sessions on different topics over the course of the fellowship. There is also the Virtual Leadership Institute that we offer in collaboration with our partners at Atlas Corps, where fellows do not only get in touch with each other, but also with other young professionals from all over the world, which is quite an exciting aspect of this program. And of course, our fellows also benefit from the alumni community that they will become a part of once they graduate from the program. And a lot of our alumni also offer their support. We recently launched a dedicated alumni platform where we also have a job board where alumni and fellows can also get career advice. They can get together in certain groups about certain topics, about certain career paths. And of course, they can, share pictures. There are certain groups and photo albums. So this platform actually helps us leverage this alumni community, where we also want to expand in the years to come with in-person meetings, virtual catch-ups, and other alumni-related activities. I will keep the testimonials very short. There are 2 here in the presentation because we have Megan here, and it will be much nicer to hear from her directly and live. But this is a quote here from Erin, who is actually a co-fellow, same cohort that Megan was in. She served in Rajasthan, in Jaipur, with a startup called EcoRap, where she was working with rural women on the design of products that were made out of waste materials. Actually post-fellowship, Erin also joined her host organization, which is something that happens quite a lot in the last cohort. I think we had 4 fellows with offers from their host organizations. So a lot of the fellows, or many of them over the years, have even stayed in India, or they have started their own organizations. They have continue to do another degree. So the paths are actually quite diverse. A lot of them stay in the development sector, but since this is also a program about leadership skills, the paths are actually quite diverse. There's another quote from Matri. She did her fellowship in education. And I kind of liked her quote here to say the fellowship introduces you to mirrors and windows. Mirrors to reflect on and windows to lead through, learning to stretch you out of your comfort zone. And that is actually also a very important point. Megan can maybe talk about her experience there as well. Getting out of your comfort zone is pretty much an experience that most of our fellows make. And even if they mention challenges, it is typically also these moments that you learn from, and especially when looking back, these are the moments that our alumni also tell us are the moments that they learned most from, and many of them even call it a life-changing experience. I don't know if you want to pitch in here, Megan. I know you have the time slot a bit later on, but please feel free to
Yeah, absolutely. I've never read the mirrors and windows analogy, but I definitely think that's very relevant and specifically something that I found in the fellowship too, in ways that I didn't even anticipate. I think that one of the coolest things about the AIF fellowship is that it is an adventure and you really don't know what you're getting yourself into as far as, you may be signing up for this, but the experience and the placement and everything like that, it's very holistic. And I think that another really cool thing is that no two fellows experiences are the same as well, because everybody is in different host organizations in different parts of India. So it's a really unique way to learn from one another in a way that you're independent and everybody has their own unique experience at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you very much. You also mentioned something very important about the different placements, or something interesting is that also every year, since we have new host organizations joining in every year as well, the fellows are literally all over India, and this can be in rural areas. Some are actually placed in cities, so they work with very different contexts, also with different communities, different languages are important depending on the project. So yeah, as Megan just said, like every experience is very different. Yeah, so now a little bit about the application process as such. Here are some very basic selection criteria. So some of the requirements are that our candidates are either Indian citizens or American citizens or permanent residents of the United States. They must be between the ages of 21 and 35. And by the start of the program, they should have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. Of course, we want our fellows also to be eager to learn. Serve, learn, lead is actually our motto in the fellowship program. So the idea is also that through service, you will learn certain skills, and this will also be beneficial for your leadership skills. So an eagerness to learn is very crucial for us, and when selecting candidates from the pool each year. Also, commitment to positive and sustainable change and the US-India bridge building. I already mentioned that the program is about bridge building between India and the US, the intercultural exchange between fellows, the professional exchange that will benefit the projects, the host organizations, the fellows, the host communities, and so on. Another thing that we look at in the applications is in how far we feel that our candidates are creative and how they would deal with challenges. Creativity comes into play when we also asked our applicants to write 3 essays, which are very short. It's actually between 200 and 400 words per essay, so it's a very brief ask, but something we look at in these essays is also, again, how creative fellows are, how they deal with certain situations, and how they would also approach challenges, maybe also cultural differences, maybe language barriers, things like that come into play when being a fellow on the ground in India. The application process is quite involved, as Megan can probably also confirm. It takes several months. So right now we are in the first stage of receiving written applications from our candidates. The deadline is February 20th. And following the written application, we will have interviews set up that will happen in March and April. And I already mentioned the matching process with the host organizations. So this will happen after we have shortlisted candidates after the interviews. So March, April for the interviews, and then May, June is the matching process, so that by July at the latest, we can let our candidates know if they are selected and if they are matched with the host organization. And then the program starts in October with professional development through the orientation conference. That is a 7 to 10 day conference where we prepare our fellows for the journey that lies ahead of them, with a lot of technical sessions, reflecting exercises. We also invite professionals from the development sector for certain topics that they will cover in their sessions. So it's quite a comprehensive preparation of the fellows for their fellowship journey ahead. So after the orientation conference, the fellows head to their respective host organizations all over India. Throughout the fellowship, we will support our fellows. There will be support through different mentors that I already mentioned earlier. And fellows can benefit from other AIF programs and contacts within the development sector. There are 3 conferences over the course of the fellowship. So we start with the orientation in October. Then in February, this is now coming up next month, we will have our midpoint conference or thematic conference, where we come again together as a cohort in person. This year, we're going to meet in Dehradun and reflect on the experiences so far. We also have visits at other organizations in the area, doing some site visits there. Prepare for the second half of the fellowship before we then come together again for the endpoint conference or the public seminar, where we celebrate our fellows' accomplishments, where there's also a graduation ceremony with keynote speakers and a lot of guests that we invite. Fellows present posters that present their fellowship projects. We also launch our fellowship publications. There is a yearbook every year. The fellows also publish creative publications that will be launched on that very day. So it's a wrap up of the fellowship and a celebration of all the accomplishments. Yeah, and having said that, I would love to give over to Megan. Here are some photos from her fellowship experience, and maybe Megan, you can talk a bit about those photos and your experience overall.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Bjorn, and thank you all for being here today. It's really nice to meet all of you and get a chance to reflect about the fellowship. Just hearing about what Bjorn's slides have said just make me very nostalgic, and very excited for all the people who are to come as far as getting to be fellows. It's definitely been a career highlight of mine to be able to be part of the AIF fellowship, and I hope that you all get to experience it as well. So hello, my name is Megan McKinley. I'm originally from Ohio. That's where I'm calling from today, actually. And I was fortunate enough to study abroad in India 2 times during my undergraduate degree. And the first time I went there, I actually had the chance to meet an AIF fellow. So shout out to Brittany Banyan. And that really inspired me to learn more about this fellowship. And so that was back in 2014. And it was something that really stuck with me after I graduated from college of, I'd love to go back to India. I'm very interested in the development sector and would love to be part of something such as that. So fast forward a few years, after graduating my undergraduate degree, I went on to work in the study abroad field, where I really became specialized in program and project management. So got to work in a few different countries doing that. But in the back of my mind, again, always was thinking about this fellowship and the opportunity to go back to India. And so in 2020, I actually applied. Not a great time to apply for the fellowship, but applied as I was kind of at a crossroads with my career and with COVID and everything. So again, my background is in study abroad and education technology. So was doing that. And then with the fellowship, and COVID, they restricted it to only Indian fellows for a few years during COVID. And so in 2022, they reopened for American fellows. And so at that point, they had contacted me and said, hey, we still have your application on file. Are you still interested? To which I said, absolutely. This has been a dream of mine for a while. And so I would love to move forward in the process. And so as Bjorn talked about, the initial part of the application is some of the essays and whatnot, some really creative prompts that they have. And if you have a chance to check out my AIF blog, you can read more about some of my responses in those initial applications. And then after that, so had a few interviews and discussed with the AIF team about what it would look like, got to meet some of the former fellows through the application process, and again, went through that. And then something I wanted to shed light on and demystify was about the matching process that Bjorn is talking about. So essentially how that looked for us when we went through it is that each potential fellow has a database of the different projects that will be there for the next round of fellows. And at that point, I think we had, I don't know, maybe 50 or something to look through. And so based on what you're looking for out of the fellowship and the descriptions from the different organizations, you can see some basic information as far as language requirements, where they might be located, what the project could look like, et cetera. Then you as a potential fellow, you get to rank the different order of your top 3 or 4 choices. And so for me, I really focused on something that was in program management, as well as education and gender, because that's something I wanted to focus on throughout the fellowship. And at that point, I got to rank 4 choices. And what's funny in that is that at that point, I was pretty set on my number 1 choice. I really wanted to go to this one specific project. And then after that, you get to interview with the different projects. And at that point, my number 4 choice at that time became my number 1 choice. So I think it's really interesting how this fellowship kind of selects you, and it's a self-selecting process at the end of the day, as far as finding that relationship and building something that is really, equally beneficial for both the fellow and for the host organization, which I really think that AIF does a good job at, is trying to make sure that both the fellow and the host organization are a good fit for each other. So with that, I got placed with an organization called Puriador, which is based in Chennai, specifically working on a project that's focused on gender equity called Playquity. And so here's some photos from my year. It was an amazing time. I got to do things that I never even dreamed of doing, as far as, visiting different places in India, getting involved in ultimate frisbee. I'm not an athlete myself, but got to learn a lot about that. Connecting with amazing organizations, partner organizations, learning from some pretty incredible individuals, both at Playquity and through the fellowship with the senior fellows. The fellows themselves, some of my best friends in the world have come from the fellowship journey, just because it is such a unique experience that we're all having together. So I can take you through some of these photos. The top left is in Assam, which is a state in the northeast of India. That was at one of the morning practices that we were hosting for the women of Playquity. The next one is me and some of the fellows at the Midpoint conference, which Bjorn was talking about, doing one of the workshops about creative design and whatnot. Really fun workshop that we're doing. Then the next one is with some of our partners with the UPAI, which is the Ultimate Frisbee Organization of India. I got to meet with them. So pretty amazing and inspiring people. Bottom left is my partner in crime, Jyoti Chauhan, who I got to work very closely with throughout my fellowship journey. One of the highlights of my fellowship journey was actually at the public seminar that Bjorn was speaking about on the last day. Jyoti and I got to speak about our experience working together, and just like he was saying about building the bridge between India and the US. I don't know how in the world I would ever come across Jyoti in another way. And so it was a really amazing cultural exchange that we had, and the relationship that we built and got to learn from one another throughout the year. So really happy and grateful for that opportunity to be able to work with her and continue that relationship onwards after the fellowship has ended. Again, more frisbee and my supervisor that I had throughout my fellowship. And then the last photo, again, is from the Midpoint conference in a seminar that we did with some of the senior fellows. So again, yeah, I was based in Chennai, and the first month of the fellowship, like I said, you never know what you're getting yourself into as far as this fellowship. And even with the matching process, I know that the projects can say, you're going to be doing X, Y, and Z, but a really big important thing about this fellowship is having an open mind and being adaptable to whatever might come, because some of these projects, and especially in the development field, can change. And I know for me and some of the other fellows, that was the case as far as what our expectations were versus reality, as far as, coming into an organization and being on, somewhat of a one-year contract with these organizations. So I know I said before, but everybody's fellowship placement is very unique to them and very unique to what the host organization is looking for. And so with mine, I was based in Chennai, but the project I was working on, everybody was in different locations. And so my fellowship journey looked a lot different than some people who were going to an office every day. So I actually was working from home during part of my fellowship journey with a lot of field visits. So based in Chennai, but I got to travel to a few different states throughout my fellowship journey. Like when I went to Assam and I went to a few other states to go meet some of the women who we were working with in the rural areas. So yeah, that was part of my fellowship journey. And the first month I got there and I was like, what did I just get myself into? I had this moment of like, I can't believe I did this. And is this right for me? And a bunch of self-doubt. And can I stick through it? I remember like looking on my phone, like, okay, when am I leaving? How many more days until I can get out of here? But after that initial freak out and just, settling in, I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, I can do this. And by the end of it, I didn't want it to end. It was such a roller coaster of a year in the best way possible. There was definitely highs, lots of lows. I think I came out a different person than I went into it. And I think that's exactly what the fellowship is meant to do. I grew in ways that I did not anticipate at all. I really was thinking that I would develop myself professionally a lot more. But what I really took away was the personal development that I had and being able to be on my own in a place that I didn't know anyone, that I didn't know the language, that I didn't have a safety net. Whereas, throughout my adult life, I've always been with people who have been in my corner. So to be able to lean on people and build community and, take the resources that I have available to me and really make it what I wanted it to be was an amazing experience. I know Bjorn has touched on the network of people that the fellowship introduces you to, which I think was one of the most invaluable things that I took away from the fellowship. I'm still connected to a lot of the fellows, the senior fellows, as well as the AIF team. I'm still in touch with Bjorn and Ankit and other people that work there. So it's really nice to just continue those relationships. And I think with the development field itself, there's so many opportunities and people are always looking to collaborate and learn from one another. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the development field. So yeah, I think I just got out of the fellowship with, the last 6 months and still I'm reflecting on my experience and learning new things from what I gained from that. And I think one of the biggest takeaways I have from the fellowship too is just, being able to be on my own, being independent, as well as the writing that I got to develop throughout the fellowship. A big part of the fellowship is writing blogs and reflecting on your experience. And I think that really forced me to think in a way that I hadn't been in another professional setting. So I think the reflection with the mirrors and the windows that they mentioned in the testimonial is very real with this fellowship, and it's an amazing opportunity. So Bjorn, what else would you like me to add?
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Megan. Makes me also nostalgic actually to think back of just a few months ago when we came together for the Endpoint conference and with the cohort. Actually now for the Midpoint conference coming up in February, some of your cohort members will also join as alumni, meeting with the current fellows, which is also always a very exciting part of the exercise of having these conferences where we always invite program alumni. So hopefully one of the upcoming conferences you will be there as well. But thank you so much for sharing these experiences, and I'm extremely happy that it's that you had such an amazing experience that you took out of so much. A lot of the things that you mentioned brought up some ideas in me that I also wanted to talk about. You mentioned the blogs, for instance. I just wanted to mention to everyone interested here in more first-hand experiences from our fellows on our website. You will see all of these blogs that the fellows write over the course of their fellowship, which gives you a good idea of these experiences. And as Megan also mentioned, it can be challenging, or in the beginning especially, she was even thinking about giving up, and then things changed again. And I think that's something that many fellows have experienced in a similar way, that things also develop over time. I think another important aspect in this regard is Megan mentioned that you should keep an open mind, and that projects can change. Also, oftentimes we hear back from fellows that they had a certain idea in mind how impactful their project will be, and then they got a bit frustrated or disappointed that the impact didn't show up right away. In that moment, kind of underestimating how much impact their mere presence already has, and also in the month to follow, it will actually evolve into the impact, and maybe very different from what your expectations are. And Megan also said, you might interview with different host organizations, but the reality on the ground might be very different from how you imagine things. And that's true for many things in life, not only for this fellowship, of course, but I think that's also the beauty of the experience, and something that one should kind of expect to happen, and go through these different phases and learn from them, and hopefully have a similar experience as Megan had. Yeah, so I see, or I mentioned earlier, that you can drop your questions in the comments section, because we would go over to this last section of our Q&A. You can also feel free to contact us. You will find our email addresses here. We are happy to answer your questions, or also you can also set up one-on-one meetings with me if you have some questions. Just see something here in the comments. Oh yeah, good question. Since I mentioned we have two service tracks, service in India and service in the United States. The program we are currently accepting applications for is the service in India track. And yes, candidates can apply for both tracks. However, the service in the United States track is only for Indian citizens. So for American citizens, it's only the India track that is relevant, or that they can apply for. Indian citizens can actually apply for both. So it depends on your citizenship. And right now, we only accept applications for the India track. We have one question for you, Megan. Do you see it in the? Okay.
Yeah, I see it. So Aaron asked, can you speak to how your fellowship impacted your career trajectory and career goals? So I definitely think that is something that I took away from this fellowship for sure. What to say? I think that more than anything, this fellowship taught me that I can do difficult things and kind of roll with the punches as far as going into different types of careers. I think prior to this, I hadn't worked directly in the development field, but I think this really opened a door for me to see the possibilities of the different directions that you can go in the development field. I actually am currently working with an organization that I worked with prior to COVID now. But I know, like Bjorn said, I think it's really cool how this fellowship, a lot of people go in various different directions, and it's very open to people who have done different things prior to coming to the fellowship too. So I know a lot of people who, like Bjorn said, have joined their host organization or gone on to get master's degrees, gone on to, do different things in the development field. So I think, yeah, for me, I think just learning what is out there, and specifically with my host organization, I really reflected and realized the power of an individual. My host organization was founded by two people, and I was essentially employee number 3 when I was working there. And so I realized, if there's a will, there's a way, and if there's something that you want to do, the only thing that's blocking you from doing that is yourself. So I think I just really realized what people can do as individuals in this world. And so, yeah, I definitely want to stay in the development field and continue working in that, and continue building those relationships and building those connections around the world too. I think for me, I'm very passionate about cross-cultural relationships. And so continuing to build that network and build those resources and see where I fit.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let us know if you have an additional question there. I just wanted to add to this that, I also mentioned that many fellows stay in the development sector, but we have others that also, join the corporate sector, or, they have very different paths. Maybe also interesting to mention, apart from fellows joining their host organizations, we also have quite a lot of fellows who have joined the American India Foundation, especially on the India side. The organization has grown quite a bit, and we, since we are in close touch with our fellows, that's also a great way to hire from the fellow pool within the American India Foundation. So that is another thing that happens quite frequently. And also we support our alumni also when they have questions. They benefit from the networks. I mentioned the job board that we have in the alumni platform, but all kinds of career advice, or also if a fellow reaches out and would like to get connected to someone in a certain field or thematic area or job, we are also happy to facilitate this. I assume I have one question here. Does AIF help with finding, or do fellows have to find this on their own? I assume this refers to the host organizations. I hope I understand the question correctly, but so host organizations also apply with project proposals every year, even those that we have worked with before, they would still apply with a new project proposal every year. And so we select both fellow candidates and also host organizations before the matching process. So fellows don't have to find them themselves. Oh, housing, sorry, then I might have missed that. So how it works with housing, since the host organizations are also all over India, and even though AIF has connections in many areas, obviously not everywhere, the host organization actually takes care of the housing for the first, I think it's the first 2 weeks. Megan, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, 2 weeks.
Yes. And then, I mean, following that, we will also not leave our fellows alone, obviously. We will support as much as we can from the AIF network, but also the host organizations are typically the ones that, on site know most things about, what to keep in mind when looking for a place, an apartment in this respective area. So we support the fellows. The first 2 weeks are organized by the host organization, and and then fellows can choose their own housing. We don't tell them where to go, but we definitely support the search. We also support financially with a broker, for instance. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add too with that. It's really nice that it's independently driven as far as finding the housing, and with the stipend too. I know some people can be a little bit concerned as far as, is the stipend enough to find something that's manageable and whatnot. And I found that living in Chennai, which is one of the more expensive locations in India, I found that the stipend was more than enough to find adequate housing that was close to my host organization and be able to, live how I wanted to live during that time.
A few more questions coming in. Is any work experience required? I would say yes and no. I mean, as you have seen from our age requirements, fellows are between 21 and 35. So we have recent graduates in the cohort, and also fellows that have more experience under their belt. And we actually like to have such a diverse cohort where also fellows can learn from each other. Speaking of recent graduates, of course, it's very helpful if you have some kind of work experience, during your studies. It may be some voluntary work, or this would definitely stand out, but it's not a hard requirement, So if we have a feeling that someone is really motivated, has a good idea about the fellowship, and makes a strong point why they want to join, this is more important than actually having a certain amount of work experience years. There's one comment. I just completed my master's in food and nutrition. If the question is if this makes you eligible, the answer is yes. Very good question also about the public health nutrition domain, and if we have host organizations in this domain. So every fellowship year, the set of host organizations differ. There are typically always some host organizations that we have worked with before. But for a given year, it really depends on which project proposals we get in. There have definitely been many public health projects in this domain is typically covered. When we make the selection of host organizations and projects every year, we of course also see to it that it's diverse. That not all of the offered projects are within education, for instance. So yeah, public health nutrition is typically part of it, but it also depends on what kind of applications we will get from host organizations this year. So yeah. I hope I covered or I answered the questions. Please feel free to.
There's one more about the why does the fellowship not require letters of recommendation?
Oh yes, thank you.
Speak about the essay responses.
Thanks. I overlooked that one. Yeah. So actually, we do require letters of recommendation, but not at this stage of the application process. I think this was still different in your case, Megan. I think we asked for recommendation letters in the very first step of the written application. Right now, when we do the first shortlist, we don't ask for recommendation letters yet, but those candidates that we are very interested in after the deadline, we will reach out to them and ask for recommendation letters. Yeah, and the essay responses, that's also a good question. I mentioned creativity before and the approach to challenges. Megan briefly mentioned her blog, which I assume is about the alien question, because I remember that blog post. For her cohort, we had an essay question that was about an alien comes to Earth, speaks a different language, and how would you approach it? There's obviously not a right or wrong answer to this. It is more about how our candidates deal with such an absurd question, if you will. How creative are they with their answer? How do they deal with challenges? How would they act in a certain scenario? We have a similar question in place for this year, where it is about having survived a plane crash in a remote area, and you will meet a community that speaks a different language. And we also again want to know how our candidates would come up with an answer here. So overall, it is in these essay questions a lot about in how far we get a feeling that our candidates have reflected on this experience that come their way. I mean, as Megan already mentioned, you never know, you can never be fully prepared, and things will be different from what you expect. That's also part of the experience. But being open-minded enough, being curious about such an out of your comfort zone experience is definitely crucial. Being curious about, learning new things, maybe dealing with new situations, new languages, and things like that. That's something we definitely want to see in our applications, that we get a feeling that a fellow is actually interested in these kinds of experiences.
Yeah, I was just going to add too, for Aaron and anyone else who's in the application process currently, I know for me and for others that have applied in the past, really lean on the AIF Fellowship Network. I'm always happy to talk to people who are interested in the fellowship. And if you ever want people to look over your essays, I'm sure that there would be people that are more than happy to do so and give, an objective lens to your essay responses and take a look over that for you. So that's definitely a possibility. And yeah, I think as Bjorn said, just be yourself in the application too. I don't think there's any benefit to trying to fake who you are or fake what you think this experience should sound like or be like, because every experience is different and every person brings their own strengths and whatnot. So the more authentic you can be as far as your voice and what you think will be challenges for you and what you think this experience could be like, I think that's better for everyone in the long run too.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also thank you for offering your help there. That's much appreciated. That's actually something that we've seen in quite a lot of applications also over the past years, that candidates told us that they actually contacted alumni. And that's definitely a good sign. If we feel like someone is really doing their homework about the fellowship, trying to get a better idea, connecting with people who went through this experience, I think that's definitely something that stands out to us even more so than a certain number of years of work experiences. This was a question earlier, yeah. And also, I mean, just repeating what I said before, I'm also happy to have one-on-one meetings with interested candidates. So if someone has a question that they don't want to share here in the comments, please feel free to reach out to me, and we can also set up a one-on-one meeting. And yeah, we will have another info session also coming up February 6th. And then, as you know, the deadline for applications is February 20th. So there's still some time, but also, starting early doesn't hurt, and it will probably also help you, reflecting a bit about those essay questions and what you would like to share in your application. So yeah, if there are any other questions, please feel free to add them in the comments. And if not, you can, always reach out via email. But yeah, if there's nothing more in the comments, I would say we can also wrap it up. It's not our last info session. Again, very, very special thanks to Megan. It's been a pleasure doing this with you. And thank you so much for offering your help and supporting our fellowship program, and for being such an amazing fellow and alumna. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. No, it's been really fun to be here and to talk about this journey. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I hope that you get a lot of good candidates for next year.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll keep you updated, of course. We will be in touch.
It's a nice excuse to talk about myself and talk about the journey and everything that I got out of it. So yeah, it's definitely been great.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Reach out with any additional questions you have. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to meet you virtually, hopefully in person soon. Thank you. Bye.